So, welcome back, all of you. And at least in India, it is a good morning and cold morning. I am in Delhi. Delhi is very cold. So, cold but good. So, a good morning to all of you. I'm sorry, good evening to all of you. I'm sorry. Good evening here. Good evening to all of you. As Dr. Augustine already told you that we are in the third session of this historical segment of our program. And to recall to your mind, you remember after my introduction, I said that the interaction between Catholicism or Christianity in general, we could say, and science, modern science, can be summarized or can be put under three headings, three periods with three different headings. The first one is the period of encouragement, wherein the Christianity, particularly the Catholic Church, encouraged science and contributed tremendously towards the development of science. And in fact, in not only development, even the origin of science, as Dr. Augustine mentioned to you, and I repeated that thing, number of scholars, and these are impartial scholars in the sense they are not of any particular friends of Christianity or anything, and in many ways they are agnostics or neutral towards religion. And they have argued that there are good historical reasons to say that modern science is in fact is a gift of Christianity to humanity and to the world. And as I say, I have done sufficient study and reflection on the matter. I think this is a case that can be, easily established, and there can hardly be any serious challenge to it. Okay. All right. So that is the period of encouragement. And so we discussed last time in detail this period of encouragement. And I showed to you that, there's very, very good reason to think that not just modern science, right from the beginning, because science is not, not completely new to Christianity. Even before Christianity, as I pointed out to you, science or empirical science existed. The type of modern science we talk about may not have, but empirical science, observation-based science existed. And from that time onwards, from the beginning of Christianity, that is 4th century, Christianity began the 1st century, no doubt, but 3 centuries were centuries of persecution, and church was trying to, somehow plant itself in the world, particularly in the European soil, and it didn't have much organizational or financial backing, and so it could not do much with regard to encouraging science and so on. But in the 4th, 5th century onwards, it has been doing it to this day. This is what I explained last time. Now, after this so-called rosy times or this rosy picture, a little bit of a strained picture or darkish picture, somewhat darkish picture also emerges. And this period during which Christianity and modern science had certain disagreements or certain tensions, I refer to as the period of estrangement. I'm not going to say the period of opposition. I'm just saying period of estrangement. Intentionally, this term has been chosen. Okay, so today we are going to discuss this period of estrangement. And I will explain in detail what I mean by estrangement and so on as we go along. So the period of encouragement was followed by a period of estrangement. Now, obviously, the question one will ask is, why did it happen? Why should there be any estrangement if the church was a real friend of modern science, and if the modern science is the gift of the church or the Christianity, why should there be tension? Well, when you have got two powerful institutions, two powerful agencies working together on something which is incomplete, which is in the process of progress, obviously there will be strains of growth, as it were. I would call it strains of growth, not strains of destruction. Okay, and this is what really happened. But we are trying to analyze what were some of the causes that brought about this, in some ways, unfortunate situation. And I have divided these causes into different categories. The first one will be scientific causes. The second one will be philosophical causes. And the third one will be religious causes, religious reasons. Okay. And so step by step we will go. Let us begin with the scientific causes for the strain between Christianity and modern science. And under this heading, because of lack of time and so on, we will discuss only three main areas: the Copernican theory, the Church-Galileo controversy, the evolution controversy. So let us go straight to the Copernican theory. Okay, what is this Copernican theory? This is the most important scientific reason. Well, first, let me say some known data. Practically everyone knows, this section of the known data. That is this. According to Aristotelian geocentric system, the universe or cosmology, geocentric system of the universe, or what we generally call the cosmology, Aristotelian cosmology, the Earth was the center of the universe. And second point is the Earth was motionless. The Earth does not move. And third point is all other bodies, except, of course, the Earth, went around the Earth. So these three claims were made by Aristotle's geocentric system. Okay, now commenting on this system, I say that although this view agreed with ordinary, unaided sense observation, this system, when it began developing, when science began developing, when human knowledge began developing, this system developed difficulties. Okay, this developed difficulties. Okay, now we want to find out as we go along what were some of the difficulties. Okay, so that is the first comment I want to make, that geocentric system in some ways, was satisfactory. And that is one of the reasons why it lasted for so long, 2,500, according to some historians, 2,500 years it lasted. Okay, so it's agreed with ordinary persons, person on the street, or a farmer, or uneducated person in the sense of unsophisticated person could be satisfied with this kind of thing. But difficulties began popping up, and as a result of these difficulties, in the year 150 CE, that means Common Era, Ptolemy, the Alexandrian astronomer, mathematician, a mathematical genius he was, and he modified this theory by giving what we call the Ptolemaic system or the epicyclic system. Astronomy with epicycles. And what is an epicycle? Okay, here is an epicycle. Epicycle is a cycle on a cycle. You see that the original idea was that the Earth is at the center of the universe, and all other bodies, especially planets, went around the Earth. Okay, here is the, that the green line you find, green circle you find, is the uniform circle for uniform circular motion of the planet. You remember I told you that Plato, long ago, during his time, 3rd century BCE, had stipulated that all bodies in the heavenly world, the celestial world, had to move with a uniform circular motion. Now, what Ptolemy found was, hey, this is not working. This will not happen. This is not happening when we observe. What do we find when we observe? What we find when we observe is that planets are moving in an irregular way, not the regular symmetrical way of uniform circular motion, but an irregular way. That is, for some time the planets will move in one direction, then the planet will stop, then it starts moving in the opposite direction. Retrograde motion, they said. And then, it will move backward for some time, and then afterwards again, it will pick up and go forward. So loops were made. Let me show the picture of this one. See the loops here? This kind of loops were, this is what astronomers saw when they were studying planets like Venus and Mars and so on. This is what they were seeing, you see. And so this was creating problem. This was not creating problem. This is not a uniform circular motion. So Ptolemy, being a genius in mathematics and a close follower of Plato, said, "Hey, now we have to change our arrangement. Planets are not moving on the deferent, the main circle, not the main circle. Planets are moving in circles only, but not on the main one. There is it is moving on an epicycle. Epicycle is a cycle on a cycle, circle on a circle. You see, and the planet is put on the epicycle, and planets will be moving, on the epicycle in a circular way, and then the center of the epicycle. You see the center of the epicycle, that black dot there. The black dot is the center of the epicycle. That will be moving along the uniform circle. Okay. Of course, here I am showing you only one epicycle. But with one epicycle, the complicated loop motion of the planets could not be explained. And so Ptolemy had to invent or add many epicycles for each planet. As I think mentioned to you earlier, they knew only 6 planets at that time. That is Mercury, Venus, Sun. Of course, they thought was a planet-like thing. Then Mars, and then Jupiter and Saturn. After that, they could not see anything more with the naked eye. As I mentioned to you, the other 3 were discovered later on. Last time I mentioned this point to you. Okay, so you see 6 planets only, and Ptolemy had used more than 80 epicycles, 80 epicycles. So you can imagine for each planet, so many 12 or more epicycles were needed to really copy, mathematically explain the observed motion of planets. You see, and since Ptolemy was a brilliant mathematician and a patient mathematician, he succeeded in doing that, because it was a very, very complicated. I think he spent years and years figuring this out. Poor man spent, or particularly the best of his intellectual career calculating this one and finding out. But he was rewarded for, because the accuracy with which Ptolemy could predict the future position, the movement as well as the future position of planets was quite good. For that time, it was very good. And it satisfied astronomers for 1,500 years at least, you see. And that was the genius, mathematical genius of Ptolemy. So this thinking, this was one of the problems, that, planets were not moving in a regular fashion as Aristotle had demanded. They were moving in loops, and this had to be explained. Okay. And then in the 15th century, this Ptolemy's system was further modified by George von Feuerbach, a German astronomer, I think, and he modified it. And with this modification, the accuracy was very good, very satisfactory. But there were other problems. That way, one problem was solved, but there were many other problems. And by the time Copernicus and so on came, that is, we are talking about the 16th century, many problems. I will not go into all these problems because they are technical, astronomical and technical. That is not part of our concern. So let us proceed further. Okay, these are some pictures. This is the original picture of, the Aristotelian system. And then here, of course, just one planet I am showing, a simplified picture of one planet to illustrate the use of epicycle by Ptolemy. Next one, okay, we have seen this. Now let's go into. Now comes, this is a picture of the Copernican system. The Copernican system, and here you can see at the center, the yellow is the sun, the yellow circle or yellow dot, you could say, is the sun. And this is the sun-centered one. The picture, before we do that, let me move into this. In 1543, Nicholas Copernicus gave the heliocentric system. Helio means sun, the sun-centered system, according to which the sun was the center of the universe. Secondly, the sun was motionless. All other bodies, including the earth, went around the sun. So what Copernicus did basically was to exchange the positions of the earth and the sun. Just exchange the positions, you see. And so this exchange made a big difference, of course. And this was the beginning of the Copernican revolution. The rejection of the geocentric system of Copernicus, Aristotle, and the acceptance of the heliocentric system of Copernicus. Again, here also, in this, with regard to Copernican system also, let me present before you some less known data. Okay. The model proposed originally by Copernicus lacked many features we ordinarily attribute to his heliocentric system. In other words, the model proposed by Copernicus was a very, very crude model. Very crude model. You had many difficulties, many problems. Lots and lots of work needed to be done to make the heliocentric system the way it is now, the way it is understood now. When Copernicus suggested it's a very crude system. And why am I emphasizing this point? Because, strictly speaking, Galileo supported this crude system. Using this crude system, he was arguing. On the other hand, Galileo's contemporary, Johannes Kepler, made lots and lots of changes. Kepler is the one who discovered planets move not in circles. If they move in circles, you will have a hell lot of problems. They move in ellipses. And you know, when Kepler proposed this one, Galileo laughed at Kepler, laughed at him. Galileo believed in circular time. Many people think that Galileo was a big revolutionary. In some ways, he was a revolutionary. In some ways, he was a conservative. You see, and that is the irony of the character or the scientific, even the scientific position of Galileo. Anyway, let's move on. Copernicus, for instance, was not able to present any observational evidence for the theory, for his theory at that time. Observational evidence. The only observational evidence was what you and me see even today when we get up and, you know, without knowing any science, look at the world outside, and then you find the sun going around and the earth stationary. This is all Copernicus also could say. So it is not at all the case that he had empirical observational evidence to substantiate his position. No. During Copernicus, he did not have it. And Copernicus was a good man and a humble man. And that is one of the main reasons why he did not publish his book, De Revolutionibus. His revolution-making book, he hesitated. In fact, he was reluctant to publish it because he said, we have quotations from his own writings, that he knew that he would be made a laughing stock. People laugh at him for proposing this one without evidence, without observational evidence. And of course, you know, because of various other reasons, it was taken away from Copernicus and it was published in 1543. Okay, another thing I want to mention, which is less known. In the beginning, the scientists of the day pointed out many problems with the new proposed theory. You see, the usual talk is that religious people and some philosophers and so on were the only ones who opposed it. Scientists were all supporting Copernicus' theory. Not at all. Historically, not at all. It was a scientist who opposed it, particularly Tycho Brahe. As I mentioned his name, I think I mentioned his name earlier. Tycho Brahe had the best of observational data, you see, and he was considered to be the best observational astronomer of his day. And he had a serious objections to the Copernican theory on the basis of observation, you see. And so scientists himself and many others, and they gave counter arguments to show that the Earth is not moving, and there were no, you know, convincing evidence to refute Tycho Brahe or some of the other scientists at that time, the beginning. Okay, I'm talking about the 16th century. Galileo will come with some evidence in 1609. We will see that in a few minutes' time. Also, one more thing. In the beginning, the church did not make any statement on Copernicus's proposal. The church did not make any statement in the beginning. 1543, it was proposed, and the church's first proclamation, official proclamation, came in 1616. So subtract from 1616, 1543, you find quite a long time, almost 60, 70 years, you know, before the church adversely reacted against this one. Of course, historians point out one of the reasons was the church scholars did not understand this whole business. Because you see, if you read De Revolutionibus, after a few pages in the beginning, it's all mathematics. And this mathematics was too much of too hard a pill for the theologians and Aristotelian philosophers and so on to digest. You see, so they did not know anything. They did not know. They could not understand this whole business, so they kept quiet. You see, and then what happened was Galileo will come to the picture and he will put it in symbol language. He will give evidence, some certain evidence, and so on. Then the whole matter flares up. That is what we are going to see now. Okay, let me proceed further. On Church Galileo, okay, controversy. Some get this out. Some well-known data. In 1609, using the telescope, Galileo was able to make a number of very important discoveries. These are the telescopic discoveries of Galileo. Very important event and extremely important move in modern science. And what did they see? The surface of the moon is very much like that of the Earth. It was not, not smooth as Aristotle and so on thought. It was up and down with, with valleys and hills and so on, with craters and all kinds of things. Not at all. Exactly like the surface of our Earth. Except, of course, our Earth has got trees and so on, and Galileo could not see any many trees and so on there. No life form at all there. Okay. Then he found the planet Jupiter has 4 moons. 4 moons there. 4 moons with 4 satellites for Jupiter. Another thing he found was the planet Venus has faces like the moon. Venus has got faces like the moon. He was also able to notice sunspots to some extent, sunspots. Okay, so Galileo comes to the scene and the whole scenario changes. Because till Galileo stepped into the scene, there was hardly any observational evidence. And with Galileo's coming in, certain number of observational evidence began to emerge. Of course, this observation evidence was not at all sufficient for Galileo to establish his claim that the sun is the center of the universe and the earth and other things are going around. Galileo had many more problems, and this could not give conclusive evidence that the sun is stationary and the earth is going around, and the earth and the other planets are going around the sun. Conclusive evidence could not give. I mean conclusive observational evidence it could not give. That came much later. Galileo presented all these new discoveries as observational evidence for the Copernican heliocentric view. Then what did he do? Okay, so he gave these things, these observational data or observational findings as as evidence for this. As I say, some kind of evidence it can, but it could not. There are many problems with the satisfactory nature of this evidence. This evidence was far from being satisfactory to establish the point which Galileo was claiming, or for that matter, any supporter of Copernicanism was claiming at that time. Now, what did Galileo do? He sort of, took that these pieces of evidence are convincing evidence, and they could establish the truth of the Copernican system. And then Galileo knew some theology. He was not a theologian, but he was a widely read person and also a very brilliant man. And so he found out that St. Augustine, the 4th century, had given a principle, Augustine's principle for biblical interpretation. And what is that principle, Augustinian principle? It is this: suppose the book of the Bible contradicts a well-known, well-established fact, a fact that has been established beyond all possible doubt. 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Well-established, at least in mathematics, well-established fact. Okay. Suppose the scripture goes against a well-established fact of nature. Then we don't say that the Bible is wrong or anything like that. Then Augustine says you should understand that the biblical author, the one who wrote the Bible, that particular passage, did not want us to accept that his statement literally. We should understand that he wants us, the author wants us to understand it, metaphorically or symbolically. Okay. So it is not to be understood understood literally. And so, using this principle of St. Augustine, Galileo jumped the gun, as it were, and began arguing that, all the scriptural passages in the Bible, all the scriptural passages which talk about the sun moving must be changed and reinterpreted. Remember, Galileo forgot, or he must have played a little bit of trick, that the condition for this is that the truth you claim must be beyond all reasonable doubt, well-established truth. Nobody can question it. At least at that time, nobody can question it. If that kind of a truth is there and the Bible is contradicting that, then you should understand that biblical passage is to be understood metaphorically or allegorically. Okay? All right. And so this was his argument. Now you see, we have evidence that sun is moving, Earth is stationary, all the planets are moving around the sun. We should, wherever Bible talks about sun moving, we should change. And Galileo, technically a layperson, not a theologian, not an approved theologian, making this demand. This, of course, was too much of a pill for the church authorities to swallow. Remember, the church was a supreme authority at that time. Church was the supreme authority. All kinds of powers the church had: religious, economic, political, all kinds of powers. And things are going to be problematic for Galileo. This is what happened. Also, Galileo quoted, this quotation is usually attributed to Galileo, but actually Galileo was not the original author of this quotation. It was Cardinal Baronius, a Catholic Church Cardinal Baronius is the one who said, "The Bible teaches us how to go to heaven, not how the heavens go." The Bible teaches us how to go to heaven, not how the heavens go. The Bible will teach us to, the ways and means of attaining salvation and going into heaven. How the heavens go, how the planets move and so on, that is not a direct concern of the Bible. That is a concern of astronomers and at that time even astrologers and so on, but not this was what Baronius said, and Galileo made it his own. And so that is what happened. Okay, so these things are very well explained in many historical or history books, and that's why I say it's better, more some better known data. Now I want to bring into your attention some less known data. This is also important because this adds certain modifications or certain nuances to the claim that Church and Galileo fought. Church and Galileo were at odds with each other. They were fighting with each other. Okay, this is the picture usually given. But look at this less known data. Okay, one, the Jesuit astronomers of the Collegio Romano were the first ones to independently confirm the telescopic findings of Galileo. Galileo sent his telescopic finding to Jesuit astronomers, particularly Clavius, Christopher Clavius. He was considered to be the Euclid of Europe, the Euclid of Europe in the 16th century. Brilliant man, brilliant astronomer, highly recognized one. So Galileo was a friend of his and sent it to him. And as soon as Clavius got this thing, Clavius, did not have a telescope. The Jesuit astronomers had, and Jesuit astronomers in the Collegio Romano, they are on the terrace of their house. They had a makeshift observatory. So they went up there and observed Jupiter and found exactly as Galileo had said. And what was their reaction? They rejoiced that, Galileo has discovered these things. And they wrote to him straight away. Straight away they wrote to him. We got evidence for all these things. And invited him to Rome to celebrate his epoch-making historic discovery. Because this was a milestone in astronomy, they believed, and they called him. And if you read the details, big celebration they had. And Galileo was, of course, very, very delighted and, very happy to be honored like this and so on. So this is how the first reaction from the official church, from the church came, that they congratulated him. And okay. And Galileo had a very cordial relationship, I mentioned already. Now I'm considering this point I have already mentioned to you. It is true that Augustine had given that principle, but there is one condition there, very important condition, that this matter, this evidence must be so good that there can be no reasonable doubt against the Copernican system. But this was not the case, because the Aristotelians could take into account Galileo's observations and say, our theory, our Earth-centered theory also can explain this. Okay, and they explained. To some extent, they were successful in explaining it. Okay, all right. Now also I mentioned the last sentence here. Till his death, Galileo did not have adequate scientific evidence for his claim that the heliocentric theory is beyond all reasonable doubt, scientifically speaking. He could not explain the evidence, because I think we have a chapter on detailed chapter on Galileo and Darwin. Then we will discuss the details, but I just mentioning it. This is a less known thing. And when many people start talking about or attacking or blaming the church, I'm not speaking because I'm a church person, but I mean, truth is truth. All of us have got an obligation to defend the truth. So at least from that point of view, I'm doing. At least that is my view, my position. And so there were he did not have sufficient evidence, and so Galileo could not have claimed used. Strictly speaking, Augustine's principle for interpretation of the Bible. Okay. Please excuse me. Okay, that was very brief the Galileo controversy. What about the evolution controversy? Evolution controversy, here also let me mention some well-known points. These things you know already, so I will not spend much time. In 1859, Charles Darwin published his book on the origin of species. This was the inauguration of a Darwinian version of evolution. Please do not think that Darwin was the first one to propose the theory of evolution. No. Darwin gave it only in 1859. Lamarck, the French scientist, biologist scientist, he had his version of it already in the 1800s. Already in the 1800s, And so he was never, Darwin was not the first person, but Darwin's was the most scientifically backed version of evolution theory. Now, so this is according to the origin of species, our universe and the different beings in our universe did not arise as finished products. Rather, they appeared in the course of a gradual, continuous, progressive process. This is what Darwin argued, with quite a bit of evidence. And so you see, our universe did not come as finished products. A buffalo did not come as a buffalo. A fish did not come as a fish, and they all came from some very, very rudimentary fundamental elements. Okay, and these fundamental elements, if you want, the primitive elements, primitive atoms, they joined together and evolved and developed, And in the process of that development, fish came out, then frogs came out. Since frogs can be on the dry ground also, then from the frogs, birds came out, and so on and so forth. You see, this is what evolution is saying. On the other hand, what is the biblical view? We know it very well. The biblical view is, on the first day, God created this and this. On the second day, God created some more things. And third day, everywhere you find God created, God created, God created. That is true. Till the sixth day. Sixth day, of course, God created humans. And then God got tired, and God went and slept on the seventh day. This is what the biblical story is telling us. Okay. And so the Bible does not talk about how the creation or the arrival of different things in the universe took place. To talk about the mode of creation of the numerous beings in the universe, that means the how question, does not seem to have been the principal purpose of the Bible. And what is the purpose of the Bible? The Bible wants to affirm that our universe is not self-made. It has a creator. So that is why every sentence says, and God created. On the second day, God created. How God created? That's not mentioned there. That is not at all the concern of the author of the first chapters of Genesis. Okay, and the Bible wants to affirm that our universe had a beginning in time. And we have to postulate, therefore, we have to postulate a creator for his existence, for his coming into being, and for his preservation, and so on. In other words, the Bible is not a textbook of astronomy or cosmology. A textbook of astronomy and cosmology and so on will say how these things came into being, from where did they come, what were their antecedents, what were the stuff, the primitive stuff they used for making all these things, and how the making was done. These things will be the concern of astronomy, cosmology, and so on. But the Bible is not talking about that. The Bible simply says, God, on the first day, God created this. Second day, God created this. Third day, God created this. Only God created. They did not come by itself. God had to be there to create it. This was the emphasis of this one. Now, according to Kepler, Galileo, and others, especially Kepler, the principal purpose of the Bible is the moral and spiritual development of humans, to teach people how to lead a higher level of religious and moral life. Kepler is very, very clear about this. In fact, Kepler, before Galileo, Kepler is the one who really supported Copernicus' theory. And of course, Kepler was very honest, and he said, I know I have difficulties. I know I don't have sufficient evidence, but something in me tells me that evidence will come. Something in me tells me that this theory is correct, and evidence will come. He had a sixth sense, as it were. Kepler is very clear about that. Okay, whereas Galileo's attitude was not so humble and not so clear. Of course, many people do not know it, and when I say this, some people will get irritated because they may think that I'm supporting the church too much. Sorry, I don't think so. I mean, you can check these things out in the real history, and then you'll find that these are the things that really happened. Okay, let us proceed further. Okay, so these are very briefly my analysis of the scientific reasons for the tension being built up between Christianity and modern science. Okay. What time is it? Okay. All right. Shall we pause for some questions, or I continue? Augustine? Okay, I continue.
Yes, Father. Yeah. Do you wish to take on questions now, or you wish to continue now?
I thought one section is over, and an important section, because many of the people have heard about Galileo, Darwin, and so on. They may want to ask questions. Otherwise, you get lost in these philosophical things, and then you may not remember these questions. That's why I thought.
Yeah. Oh, okay, fine. So if you have any quick questions, you are welcome now, please. Either directly post to Joe or put it in the chat box, please. Is Earth also move in regular way? Can you prove it scientifically? This is from Hassan Misigani.
What's
Is,
that? Once again,
is an
please.
Earth also move irregular way? You said about the epicycles,
Yes.
no? But it is in
Yeah,
that context, the movement of the Earth.
yeah.
Ah.
Sure. The Earth also is, with respect to the sun, the Earth also is moving in an irregular way. By irregular, what I mean is deviating from uniform circular motion. By irregular, what I mean is deviating from uniform circular motion. Earth is not making loops and all those things because we don't, we are on the and so loops and so on you don't find with regard to this one. But the Earth as a planet has to move in an ellipse. This is the law. All planets have to move in an ellipse. The Earth is a planet, so it has to move in an ellipse. That you will see only if you go and I presume that if you go and stand on the sun, you might see it. I do not know whether the people who went to outer space notice the Earth moving in an ellipse. I'm not sure. I don't think so because the ellipticity is very small. The ellipticity is very, very small for most of the planets. Anyway, the Earth is also moving in an irregular fashion, in the sense it is not moving with a uniform circular motion.
Joe, as regards that Galileo discussion that you had, I am wondering what impact had this Pontifical Commission's report had on the mainstream academia. People are still coining that old argument their research is absolutely wrong in this regard. But this academic scholarship is that mostly scientists were wrong in that regard. But has this fresh knowledge infiltrated in the mainstream academia? Because wherever I go, make this sort of presentations, people are completely strange about this new knowledge. I think this is yet to enter the mainstream. What is your reading, Father?
Yeah. You see, actually, what is happening is our church, I think practically all religions, certainly Catholic Church, because I can speak with some confidence about Catholic Church, we are all very poor communicators with the intelligentsia. We're very poor communicate with the intelligentsia, you see. And now, it is something personal. I've been going with the science religion dialogue for the last 30 years. And I went and met practically all the bishops in India. The president of CBCI, the Catholic Bishops Conference of India, and so on. And with great difficulty, allowed me for some time. That was about 20 years ago. Afterwards, it died because they were not, taking it seriously. So I gave up because I was wasting my time and I had to find the money also for all these things. So I gave up, you see. And it still continues that way. That is one thing. So we have not done enough homework and enough hard work to sell this thing, sell the new message, new idea. Okay, and so, but on the other hand, the two books which I mentioned to that William Dreyer's book, the warfare between these two, and also the book of H.D. White, that of course has sold a lot, and somehow people are always going back to these two books or similar books. They're going back for writing all these newspapers and so on. They simply go to this kind of sources because we have not made our ideas clear enough. We have not done sufficient to publicize it. Of course, I think I will not blame the church or other religions for that because we firmly believe that truth will win. When and how we do not know, but truth will win, and I suppose that is the way they are going about it. So it is mainly because of that. Because these facts were known even earlier. When I went, I was doing my research in Washington, D.C., and I saw some books written by Jesuits, Jesuit scholars, but of course, that book was not read by people. I may be one of the few persons who read that thing. It was already there. I'm talking about 60, 50 years ago, and the book was written almost 100, 70, 80 years ago. The book was there, but nobody read that book. And I took and then I photocopied, and that copies I was keeping. And that's how I got many of these new ideas and new information.
Somebody has asked the names of those books. Can you recollect those names, Father? William Drape, what is the name of that book?
William Draper is offhand.
I think in the PowerPoint there is no. Those books are mentioned.
It was given earlier. I gave it. I will send you the PowerPoint. We will get it because
you will get that. Okay, who has asked that?
I will be sending. By the way,
Hassan has asked me. Hassan, you will get the names of these books from the PowerPoint. Or get back to me. I will post to you personally.
Send it to you. And I already promised to Father Augustine that both my previous lectures and this one, my own PPT, I will send it to you because copying and recording may not give you the whole picture, or sometimes things may miss there and so on. So as a backup for you, I will send my own original PPT. Certainly it is there. The first day when I spoke, it was there. It is there. What the other one is warfare between science and religion and Christendom. That is H.D. White. The other one is I don't know exactly.
Warfare between science and Christianity.
No, warfare between science and Christianity in Christendom. It's a long title it is. That's H.D. White. R.D. White. R.D. White. Okay, or H.D. White, I forget. Anyway, you will get it, and it's very easy. You go to net anywhere you can find. Often I don't remember the wording. The other one is war between science and religion or something. Is Draper's is a shorter title. War between science and Christianity or something like that. Okay. Any other question? That is a minor thing. We can easily find it out.
Okay. Anybody? Any other question?
No. Okay. So, well, you can think about it later on. Later on, also at the end, also you can ask me if you have got more questions. So we'll proceed then. Okay.
William
the philosophical.
The story or conflict between history of the warfare of science with theology in Christendom.
Yes, that will be William Draper. William Draper.
History of the conflict between religion and science. That is William Draper.
Yeah. The other one is history of the warfare between science and religion in Christendom.
Science and theology in Christendom. Yeah. Okay, Father, go ahead now.
Okay.
I think being
the philosophical.
Please go ahead.
Okay. The philosophical causes. Again, since we are doing an MA program, we have to have in-depth knowledge. And that is why I'm going into all these details. Usually, I don't think you will find it in any particular book, things written like this. I mean, things explained like as I am doing. I am doing it in my own way. Like all my other lectures, I do it in my own way after studying the matter. Okay. So, the order is mine, and most of the ideas and interpretations are mine. So you take it or leave it, and according to your knowledge or your information. Okay, philosophical causes. The rise of the mechanical philosophy of nature. Okay, the second one is the rise of positivism. And the third one is the rise of logical positivism. Okay, so let's proceed. Philosophical causes. Okay, the first one is the rise of the mechanical philosophy of nature. I call it the machine view of the universe and the different beings in the universe. The machine view. That means basically this one is saying, the mechanical philosophy of nature is saying that our universe is a huge, gigantic machine. And not only our universe, the various things in this universe, animals, birds, fishes, and plants, all these are basically machines. And what is the implication of machine, being a machine? Machine means something that has been fabricated according to the laws and principles of the science of mechanics. Machine, that word comes from mechanics. So these beings have been designed and constructed according to the laws and principles and criteria of the science of mechanics. And in science of mechanics, developed first by Galileo, then developed into its perfection by Newton. That has got many laws and very wonderful explanations it can give about many things. And using that, they said our universe can be treated as a machine, and various things in the universe can be treated as a machine. And so Father Dr. Augustine reminded me that Dr. Stephen Jayard had already talked about it, and so I will go. I will not spend much time here, and only yes, I'll conclude. I'll go to the final point. And this type of thing, two things I want to say. Practically all the scientists from the 17th century to the 19th century believed in it. Practically all. I mean, not in the same degree, but to some degree or other, they all believed in it, one thing. Secondly, and one of the consequences of this one is materialism, downright materialism. And today, when we talk about AI, humanoids and so on, they are just a carryover from mechanical philosophy of nature. And when I give lectures on AI, humanoids and so on, I say that AI humanoids is the high point, the highest point of materialism, the ultimate triumph of materialism. That's how I put it. The ultimate triumph of materialism. That is what AI humanoids are. You see. Okay, so this machine view had tremendous impact on religion, and that is why I am bringing this up here. And when the question answer time comes, if you want to ask me more questions, you can ask. Since it has been done already, I will not spend any more time. Let me move into the next one. The Enlightenment. The Enlightenment. What was this Enlightenment? The Enlightenment was a significant consequence of the rise of modern science with its method and value system. An overemphasis on reason and scientific method was emphasized, which emphasized evidence of the senses was a trademark of the age of enlightenment. 17th and 18th centuries were noted for the age of enlightenment. You see, what happened was this. In the Middle Ages, the church was dominating and the knowledge was very much dormant, as it were. There was a lot of people working and so on. But compared to what happened from the 16th, 17th century onwards, the amount of knowledge, the buildup of knowledge previously was very insignificant. And, people began learning, and Renaissance and so on changed the whole perspective and whole outlook of people, whole worldview of people. And they began learning, reading. And also, I remember Gutenberg gave this printing or the printing press and all those things. With all these things, lots and lots of people began reading, understanding, and they were able to form an educated opinion of their own, well-informed opinion of their own. And one of the consequences was an overemphasis on reason and overemphasis on evidence of the senses, sense evidence, sense by observational evidence. These two things became very dominant, and enlightenment thrived on that. You see, and so this enlightenment movement challenged and undermined the authority of the monarchy, particularly absolute monarchy, and the supreme authority of the Catholic Church. One of the outcomes of this enlightenment was questioning the authority. Whoever had authority, whoever had power, they began questioning. And you will find that questioning reaching its pinnacle, as it were, in the French Revolution. And, the brutal killing of Catholic priests and many other leaders and so on. Okay. Also, Enlightenment emphasized scientific method and reductionism and questioned religious orthodoxy. Religions were in the Middle Ages were driven by orthodoxy, and they were forcing people to remain orthodox. That means don't change anything. The essential truth has been given. Today, there are some people say that we have the final truth. We don't need anything more. This is some of the problems of the church leaders, including Catholic church leaders. I will not mention their names, but there are some, even today, arguing. The truths are there, and you don't need any truth from anybody else. Anyway, let me not go into other areas. And this also, it emphasized, the Enlightenment emphasized individual liberty and religious tolerance. All these things are part of people getting educated. Now, just this thing, I'm telling people that with education, many social evils will go away. In fact, let me just, Professor Goodson may want to react to it. Some years ago, I had to give a couple of series of lectures for 1 week in Tehran and in Iran. And when I was giving the lectures, I noticed that, around 67% of the women folk, young girls, were educated. And in my lectures, I was giving lecture on science and religion, and I used quantum mechanics, relativity, and so on. On lectures, the main people, there are a good number of people who were ladies, and they were the ones who raised questions. The men were sitting there, and I don't know whether they even understood me. You see, but the ladies understood. They were asking questions, and even after the lectures, some of them came with the interpreters to ask more questions. So I had predicted that these ladies, they are not going to sit quiet. This will flare up. And you see what happened last year and what is happening now? Okay, it's only a beginning. But once you give education, many things, many religious orthodoxy will have to face reality. Anyway, that's only a side this thing. Let me go on. The rise of positivism. What is positivism? Positivism is the philosophical position that all valid knowledge should be based on sense experience, observation. Otherwise, it is null and void, or at least highly suspect. All knowledge has to be anchored. All knowledge has to be anchored on observational data, sense observational data. If something cannot be established on the base, validated on the basis of observational data, that is nonsense. That is, that is the knowledge claim there is null and void. We cannot take it seriously. It's null and void. If at all we take it, it cannot be taken seriously. Okay. So the triumph of observational evidence, that is what positivism is celebrating. The triumph of observational evidence, celebrating that. And this again is interconnected to Enlightenment. I already mentioned the Enlightenment time also. They were giving tremendous emphasis on data that has been validated by observation. Okay. Most materialists like Auguste Comte, Karl Marx, etc., subscribe this view of positivism. In its extreme form, positivism rejected all spiritual beings, since they were not amenable to sense observation and sense confirmation. You see? And these people said, spiritual things, you talk about soul and all this business, spiritual things. They are all just bluff. They are all just imaginary things because they cannot be established on the basis of observation. They cannot be confirmed on the basis of observation. An extreme form of this one is the logical positivism. Logical positivism was a branch of contemporary philosophy of science. It arose also in the 20th century, first half of the 20th century. Okay, logical positivism can be considered a variant, an extreme version of positivism. It is closely associated with symbolic logic, that means mathematical logic or computer logic, since it required that all reliable forms of study and analysis of reality must be done in terms of symbolic logic. Symbolic logic, as I think already mentioned earlier also, but here I mention again that symbolic logic is mathematical logic. The logic which was developed by Whitehead and Russell in the 20th century, first half of the 20th century or first quarter of the 20th century. And this is being generously used in computer programming. Computer programming is based on this. Okay. It emphasized clarity and exactness. Logical positivism said what is uppermost in our knowledge or in our claims is clarity and exactness. All these fuzzy things in philosophy means nothing. Forget about them. And the fuzzy things in spirituality and all those things, forget about them. Clarity and exactness, that is what really counts. Hence, they insisted on mathematical logic, because mathematical logic obviously will give you clarity and exactness. Mathematical logic is based on two variables, two possibilities, yes or no, off or on or off, truth or false, true or false, and that is in logic, and then yes or no in our ordinary language, and then electrically on or off, because electricity is the one who drives computers and so on. Only two possibilities there. Either the electricity is on or electricity is off. There is nothing in between. So this is logical positivism. So cut and dry, exact. All right. This philosophy also denied any significance to spiritual and immaterial things. God and religion naturally were alien to this philosophy. So this is about the philosophical causes. Okay, the rise of these things, and they all took place almost simultaneously with science. And the developments and success of science also had something to do with strengthening these philosophical beliefs. Okay. Now, the last item I mentioned was religious causes. Religious causes. So let me spend some time on this, religious causes. The Protestant movement and Catholic defensiveness. The emphasis on a literal understanding of the Bible mainly came from the Protestant movement. And also I mentioned, this is a less known thing, 2 letters of the Jesuit General Claude Acoviva. Okay, so let us go into these details. Religious reasons for the strain between Christianity and modern science. Protestantism and the defensiveness of the Catholic Church. Protestantism, as you all know very well, was a religious movement in the Catholic Church which arose in the 16th century as a reaction against some of the perceived excesses of Catholicism with regard to doctrines and practices. There were excesses. We know about indulgences and all those things. There were excesses, corruption and malpractices and all kinds of things were there. And scandalous behavior and all those things were there. And Protestantism was one of the products of dissatisfaction with existing Catholicism. Okay, according to many scholars, Protestantism began in 1517, 16th century, when Martin Luther published his 95 Theses. We know all these things, that's not going to. The five solas of Protestantism. Again, these things also I'm sure most of you know, and I'm just refreshing your memory, as it were. You see, since Protestants in general do not have subscribed to any central authority like the papacy in Catholicism, it is difficult to give a general view of their beliefs. However, most of the Protestant denominations and related groups accept all or most of these five solas. Sola means, alone, nothing but. Sola scriptura, scripture alone, nothing but the scripture. The Bible alone is our highest authority. That is there, sola scriptura. Sola gratia, grace alone. We are saved by the grace of God alone. Other things are don't count, or they are only secondary. Sola fide, faith alone, nothing but faith. We are saved through faith alone in Jesus Christ. Solus Christus, yes, faith, Christ alone. Jesus Christ alone is our Lord. Jesus Christ is our Savior and our King. Sola Dei Gloria, to the glory of God alone. Everything we do, everything we are, for the glory of God alone. We live for the glory of God, and we live for God alone. These are the five solas. I'm just trying to summarize it because we don't need a detailed one. And many of these things are accepted by Protestant groups and so on. And so that one way of identifying them will be people who subscribe to these solas. Scriptural interpretation. With regard to interpretation of the Bible also, the Catholic Church has a central authority, whereas the Protestants do not have such an authority. This can and often does lead to individuals interpreting the Bible in his or her own way, leading to disputes and disagreements. Remember, I brought this thing up. Remember, Galileo began interpreting the Bible, and he's an individual. And when he began, he was perhaps the only person, using that language and that kind of argument. You see, church got frightened. My goodness, this fellow is, a Catholic, but he is behaving like a Protestant, and we have to be careful. Otherwise, all our Catholics will be taken away. That kind of fear the church began developing. The Catholic Church emphasizes unity, and in some ways we can say uniformity. The view of Galileo and his followers that scientific passages in the Bible should be interpreted in light of scientific theories could lead to disunity and confusion, and many interpretations and so on. This was particularly so since Galileo was a layperson with no formal training in theology and the sacred sciences. All these considerations led the Catholic Church to be wary of the Protestant spirit. Okay. Another thing, emphasis on a literal understanding of the Bible. This also turned Catholicism against the Protestant groups. The point is closely related to Protestant understanding of the role of the Bible. Many Protestant groups followed a literal understanding of the Bible. As you know, many Protestant groups are fundamentalist. In the US and so on, we can see it in a very conspicuous way. The Catholic Church, on the other hand, usually went by the official interpretation of the Bible. Catholic Church went by interpretation, but the interpretation is not by anybody. It's an official interpretation. The church has to approve the interpretation. You cannot simply, stand up and say, this is how I understand it, and do. No. You can, and it is to be interpreted, but the appropriate people with appropriate powers should do it, and should be authorized and approved by the official Catholic Church. That was the church's position. It was thought that the view of Galileo and his followers about the interpretation of the Bible could create problems with regard to this matter also. So that was another point. Now, something which you may not have heard, at least those who are attending the class, is the two letters of Father Jesuit General Claude Acquaviva. Remember what I told you last time? The Jesuits were the scientific representatives or scientific wing of the Catholic Church. You know, at least they are officially recognized as Catholic scientists. Okay, and all the Jesuits come under the Father General in Rome, and these things are happening. And let me just briefly introduce this subject. What was happening was, you see, the Jesuits, many of the Jesuit scientists, they knew that you simply cannot sell the geocentrism anymore. Aristotelian cosmology you cannot sell anymore. Most of the Jesuit scientists knew. But at the same time, Jesuits have a dilemma. Jesuits were in a dilemma. For us Jesuits, obedience is the most important thing. And a good Jesuit will always obey. When the chips are down, when one has to act, a good Jesuit will always obey. Of course, he will not obey anything sinful and so on, but as long provided it is not sinful, a good Jesuit will always obey. You see, and so these Jesuit scientists had a problem. So what did they do? Many of them, what they're doing was they went for compromise. Many of the Jesuit scientists accepted the cosmology of Tycho Brahe, which was a hybrid between Aristotelian system and Copernican system. Real hybrid it was. And most of the Jesuits, openly, publicly accepted that. Many of them, did not say anything, but they all, as far as I can see, most of the dominant Jesuit scientists were sympathetic towards the Copernican theory, you see. And so the Rome must have come very hard on the general and put pressure on him. And he wrote two letters. In his first letter, the first letter was written on May 24, 1611. And the second one is, December 14, 1613. The first letter, he called upon all Jesuits to observe uniform, solid doctrine, which meant following Thomism in theology, Thomistic theology, and Aristotelianism in philosophy. When you say philosophy at that time, in this context, philosophy basically means science, natural science. You see, the word science came much, much later. The word science is a comparatively, a new thing. We may think that the word science began to be used right from the beginning of modern science. No. Newton died in 1727. 1727 he died. And Newton's science was known as natural philosophy. Newton never called his science. He called it natural philosophy. You see? Anyway, so what I want to say is Aristotelian philosophy, by that what they mean is Aristotelian cosmology in this particular context. Since geocentrism was an integral part of Aristotelian Thomism and Aristotelian philosophy, this stipulation anathemized any form of openness to Copernicanism. Okay, and so he wrote this letter, and he waited, he was watching, seeing how well the Jesuit scientists were following it and so on. He was not happy. And probably Rome also told him, no, you cannot play a game with us. You have to get into the act. And so he found their complaints with the letter of 1611 unsatisfactory, and he issued a second letter with stronger words and so on. And he said, whoever teaches views contrary to St. Thomas, or who introduces new things into philosophy on his own initiative or from obscure sources, is ordered to detract from them immediately. And to add more weight to his statement, Acquaviva said, I am giving this instruction not as anything new. It is not my invention. It has always been with the Society of Jesus. In fact, he says these things have been agreed upon by the general congregation. General congregation is the supreme authority in the Society of Jesus. Father General also bound by the general congregation's decrees. Okay, so supreme authority, the general congregations, particularly decree 41 of the 5th general congregation, which took place in 1593 to 94, and also the ratio studiorum. Ratio studiorum is, you could, if you want, general syllabus for Jesuit formation, general syllabus for Jesuit formation and Jesuit education. The Jesuit colleges and so on, strictly speaking, is supposed to follow Ratio Studiorum, developed by the Jesuits. Okay, and so he reminded them, I am not bringing any new stipulation of mine. So please, please don't misunderstand me. I'm just reiterating, just repeating what we all have agreed upon for a long, long time, and the supreme authority of the general congregation, as well as Ratio Studiorum, which also has been approved by general congregations and so on. I am asking you to abide by what we have already promised, already agreed upon. And so you can see how strongly Acovivo was putting his idea, with his order through the Jesuits. And so obviously this also created tension because many Jesuits found it very difficult to manage. And they could not do justice to the science they were practicing. And so all these things added together to create an estrangement. I will not say that attack or anything, estrangement, and with modern science. Christianity and modern science reached the stage of or period of estrangement, thanks to all these different factors. These are the things I wanted to share with you. And we have some more time, 5-10 minutes more, I think. I don't know how much time left. But if you want to get our discussion, you want me to explain anything more, we can.
We have 6 minutes more.
Yeah.
We have another 6 minutes more, Father.
Yes, okay, sure. Please ask any questions, or, as I mentioned to you, need not be directly related to this one. If we can make it directly related to this one, that will be the best. But even, other questions which we have seen.
Yeah, I have enabled unmuting for participants. You can directly ask questions now. Yeah.
Father Job, I just wanted to point out that in the Protestant tradition, there's a new movement of religion and science called Biologos, led by Francis Collins, the famous scientist in America.
Yes, I know Francis Collins. Yes, very well.
And that movement is counter to Protestant fundamentalism, which stresses the literal interpretation of the Bible. So I just wanted to point out that that people who want to look into it, you can go to their site. It's online, called Biologos.
Yes, sure. Thanks a lot for the information. As you know, Francis Collins was an atheist when he began his research on Human Genome Project,
Right.
And eventually, doing the Human Genome Project, he became a believer. And he has a book on that, he himself has a book on that. And
yeah, I have that book, and I met him personally. Yeah.
Yes, sure. And because there are many others like that who began as atheists and began doing science. And as a result of doing science, they became believers. Alan Santag is another person. American. Yes.
This Job, as far as I understand, this creationist school is the most conservative among the biblical approaches, I think.
Yes.
They are also Protestant denominations, isn't it? Which denomination is exactly this creationist school? Is there any change in their stand given the advancement in biblical research sense.
Maybe Gerald can answer it now that because you see we don't have in India we don't have we don't have this kind of thing so much, but in North Carolina and all these places they are very strong. Maybe you could say something and then I will add to it.
Yeah,
Please.
in the United States, the more fundamentalist Christian groups are creationists. They do not accept the science as we understand it in this program. And as a result, they lend towards a biblical literalism. And so they try to counter any understanding of it's mainly centered on evolution. They don't accept the Darwinian theory of evolution. And many of the churches in the South of the United States subscribe to creationism. I was sent a book to review on this, and I told the author, whom I know, I couldn't recommend it because it's creationism. It's not. It doesn't represent an actual valid scientific perspective. So it's a very strong movement in certain elements of Protestantism.
Yes, very true, creationism. And also it has a different incarnation. In a modern incarnation is, what is that thing that that young mathematician fellow? I can't remember his name just now offhand. I have his books with me.
Dubinsky, I think. Dubinsky?
Yes.
Yeah, he's a mathematician, and he's been leading the creationist movement. Yeah.
Correct. I have listened to him, I have listened to him speak in the US and so on. Very brilliant man, but somehow he got into this and uses mathematics and so on, and very seriously argues that creationism is correct. See, the saddest thing about creationism is they're also claiming that they are giving science. Their stuff is there. What they present is science, and they say they have got empirical evidence that the universe is only 6,000 or 7,000 years old. They're claiming, and some of this evidence they are trying to present, and many scientists, of course, don't accept it, and we cannot accept that 6,000, 7,000 years age of the universe. So anyway.
John Haught, who teaches at Georgetown, he's now retired, has written several books on evolution, which are very good, giving the contemporary understanding of evolution from the Catholic perspective.
Absolutely correct. And God After Darwin is almost like a masterpiece.
Yes, I have.
God After Darwin is almost like a masterpiece. At least, yes.
One other thing I was going to mention when I give my lecture on Islam, Fethullah Gulen, the leader of the Hizmet movement and the Hizmet schools in 100 countries, they do accept scientific theory, contemporary theory, much in line with the Catholic tradition. And they have they're in 100 countries, their schools, and they teach contemporary science. Because traditionally in Islam, up until the 20th century, science was considered the science of the Quran, not independent science.
Yes.
And Gulen schools have been leaders in scientific understanding.
Well, unfortunately, in India, I tried, 14 international symposia I organized. And in all of them, I tried to get the best of Indian science, Islamic scientists and Muslim scientists to come and speak. And to this day, I have not been able to get a satisfactory one who tries to dialogue between Islam and modern science. And when we really confront them, they try to evade the issue, and what will I say? They don't simply answer, and we cannot force them, so I let them go. But it is in India. I think that the group you are talking about has not made any serious impact, as far as I know.
They're a small movement, but they're pretty strong here in the United States. So we do conferences with them. And I think we're going to invite you to come to California in next 25 they're putting on a big conference on AI. So we'll be talking about that in the future.
Okay, thanks. Yes, yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think we will wind up on time. See, there's a question from Isaac Richard. Are we not breaking for the holidays? This is a business question. I think our African friends especially have long Christmas holidays lasting till the first week of January or the middle of January, I think. Today also we had only half the number of regular participants. In that case, I think we will need to break next week perhaps if they are mostly on hold. What do you think, Jerry?
I think we should break next week. I'm going to be away myself.
I
So
see.
I think it'd be good to take a Christmas break. Yeah.
Then certainly we can, I will ascertain the scenario with Reginald also as to how is it in Africa. Anyway, Job, we will keep you updated. Most likely we will not have a class next week.
Yeah, I would suggest, because I'm ready to give the class. I would suggest, let them feel because it is Christmas, and so let them, New Year also.
Then let us settle down on that. Next week we will not have a class.
Yeah,
and when are we going to resume? Possibly in the first week of January. That we will confirm eventually.
Yeah, I think that is better because let them feel that Christmas and so on is something different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Big thank you, Father. You spoke for nearly 90 minutes. This is very stressful. I know. Anyway, Robert Graff has extended Christmas, blessed Christmas to everybody. Same to you, Robert. And everybody, a very Merry Christmas to you and also a blessed and graceful New Year from our end. Thank you.